Hey, Paul, speaking of Garnett, why do you think he hasn't truly embraced the city and hasn't been embraced? Is it simply because he came in, so deep into his career to where I don't know if it didn't matter, maybe it just wasn't possible. I mean, how do you cultivate that relationship with your town that you're playing in when you've already been in the league? What, 10 years, 13 years at that time, 12 years, something like that?
Right. I mean, his heart belongs in Minnesota. That's where it is. And he's also an incredibly private person. One of the most private, big time. I mean, he's a pseudo celebrity. I guess he's an athlete celebrity. One of the most private athlete celebrities I've ever been around. I did a big piece on him when I was at Boston Magazine back in after the championship season in 2008. We wanted to do a big profile. He wanted nothing to do with it. And I never got a chance. I got 90 seconds with him once. I trailed him around for 2 hours on media day to ask him one question. Gave me a great answer, but that was the extent of my in quotes sit down interview. It was more like a stand up interview with Kevin, and so we wound up doing a sort of a different kind of piece. But um, that's his way, and he's very consistent with it. I don't have a problem with it, but that's just who he is, and I think people give him that kind of respect.
Yeah, he has this reputation ever since he's come over to Boston as this fake tough guy, as guy who's picking on the little European guard instead of the big center who he should be tangling with. Is he? Do you think he's trying to embrace a tough role? Like I always look at it as he thinks this is what he's supposed to be, so he's going to try to make himself that. Like, is he crazy? Is he actually tough? Is he just a lot of bark and no bite? What is he?
Yes, all of it. No, it's totally fascinating to me. As a Garnett, I mean, he had this reputation in Minnesota a little bit too. Um,
Yeah,
but as a
nobody
as a
lost.
Garnett watcher, this has always been completely fascinating to me. The question I always ask people, whenever I see old Minnesotans like Steve Ashburn or people like that, I'm always like, tell me a Garnett story. Tell me, and so we have this sort of like Garnettology that we follow. Um, I think there are times when he loses his mind, and I don't mean that like in a flippant way. I think he just kind of just things go kind of haywire, and he does things he probably regrets. I think definitely he can get a little cheap on the court. I don't think that's a big secret. But I think that somewhere along the line, he really believes that he is, you know, he's the backbone, and he needs to be this way. I don't know. It's a fascinating thing. I do think he's like I don't want to use the word crazy, but I think he's a little bit crazy. And I think that there are definitely things that happen during the game that he just loses his mind.
I've always described him as psychotically competitive, and I think that's
Hmm.
different than crazy because I think he wants to win so badly. He's always he's got that famous interview with John Thompson where he cries because he's losing. When he's towards the end of his run in Minnesota, and I think that causes him to do things that he normally wouldn't do. Is it psychotically competitive a good way of putting it? Is he just beyond loyal to his teammates that he's going to try to find any little thing to help them out?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part. One of the things I actually kind of like about covering the Celtics, and I'm actually from New Jersey, so I didn't, I was a Celtics fan, I guess, when I was a little kid. But one of the things I like about covering the Celtics is they're kind of they're a grown up team. They're close to my age, especially the veteran guys, and they have a definite old school mentality that Rondo follows as well. They don't they don't joke around with other guys on other teams. Like you're not on the Celtics, you're not. There's that great scene in the association when they all went to the All Star game last year, where yeah, I think it was LeBron was like, we got the C's over here and the Heat over here, and they're not talking to us, and we're not. And like that's just the way they are. And so I think what Garnett has instilled in the Celtics is this is family, this is us. Like nobody else around us matters really outside of us and the coaches, and they rally around that too. They really, really do. So I think it's a big part of it. And the one thing he doesn't get credit for, I'm going a little off field here, but the one thing he doesn't get credit for is what he's done with the young guys who care. And there are some guys who haven't, and he's shunned them, and he gets some crap for that. But if what he did when he first got here, he took all the rookies out and bought them all suits so they could look like NBA players, so they could look like professionals. And he has really taken the ones who want to know. he's taken them under their wing and he's told them the secrets, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for that.
My last question for you, you are close to the team. Not to pull an Ethan, but let's talk about one of your doppelgangers, Keon Dooling. With Keon Dooling and Mikhail Pietrus and Chris Wilcox, like it's just such an awkwardly put together team. I feel like they just went out and got names and tried to say, look, this is our veteran bench and this is what we have. Does it seem awkward to you, just the way this roster is constructed and how they try to execute what they've always done?
Yeah, by the way, my goal in life is to walk in a locker room and have outdressed Keon Dooling. Just once. I want to do it. He is a sharp-dressed fella. But, yeah, it's very, very awkward. It's very awkward. And, one of the things that they did was, with this shortened off season, they made sure they didn't bring anybody in here who was signed beyond this year. The one guy is Brandon Bass as a player option for next year. So, they went out and got guys like Keon Dooling. They got Chris Wilcox for 1 year. They brought in Bass. They signed Marquise Daniels and Sasha Pavlovich for 1 year. That's also where the Jeff Green thing hurt them. Like, they would not have signed all those guys if Jeff Green was able to play. So it is incredibly awkward the way this team is constructed. And basically they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, and it hasn't worked. And it probably won't work. But, one of the things I've written, people don't want to hear it, but is if you have to spend 1 year with a weird team that doesn't really do what you want it to do, that's a lot better than spending 4 years with a bad team that's got a lot of long contracts you don't want. So, yeah, they're awkward. They don't fit. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but here they are.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul. This was awesome. Before we let you go, can you just give us a prediction for where these Celtics end up this year? I know their health is a concern, but we're going to just put you on the spot and ask a completely unfair question before you leave.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, if they do nothing, they're going to be a 7 or 8 seed, and they're probably going to lose in the first round. Maybe they sneak into the 6. Best case scenario, they sneak into the 6th seed. They beat somebody like Philly in the first round, and then lose in the second round. So that's if they do nothing. If they trade Rondo, all bets are off. All bets are off. I don't know where they're going to go if they trade Rondo. If they trade, one of the other guys, then you're going to have the exact same scenario that I outlined in scenario 1. So it's really, to me, it's do you trade Rondo or do you not trade Rondo? And I think that's where they are. They're not winning a championship. They're not, the 1999 Knicks, even the 2010 Celtics, I don't think really applies here, especially because the second half of the season is going to get really ugly for them. If you look at their schedule, they are on the road a lot, and they got a lot of back-to-back games. It is brutal. They needed to be like 20-10 after that home stretch, and they were like 15-15. So it's going to get really tough. The playoffs are going to be really tough for them with all the games piled up back-to-back. So there's not a huge upside to this team, and it really does come down to the next 3 weeks, which will make my life really awful.
All right, well, good luck with that.
Thanks. Hey, if you hear any good trade rumors, pass them along. I'm sure I'll have to respond to all of them.
All right, thanks a lot for coming on, Paul. Hopefully we can do it again when you're as busy as possible.
All right, thanks, guys.